The Spectacular Spider-Man is one of those shows that I'll never get over actually ending. It's one of those shows that has no right being as good as it is. What immediately separates this show from its more contemporary counterparts is how this show is all about Spider-Man and Spider-Man alone. No Captain America, Thor, or Iron Man to focus on. Spidey already has a plethora of fantastic characters, so this is perfectly fine to me. And the show makes the absolute most of every single one of them. Every character in the show is just so perfectly defined and well developed that it makes no sense. I'm talking from Gwen, Liz, her brother, Flash, and even Black Cat. The show manages to make you understand and like every character.
Oh, I got the thing on the thing! What do I win?
You!
I win me? That makes no sense.
Every character in this show is, by and large, defined by their relationship with Peter. While in a normal show, this may turn out to be its biggest crutch, for the Spectacular Spider-Man, it actually turns out to be one of its narrative assets. This is all thanks to the amazing interpretation of Spider-Man that feels like it was ripped straight out of the comics and slapped onto a beautifully animated 24 frames per second masterpiece. Because the story hinges so firmly on the base of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, it's the villains that intertwine with his two lives that end up being the most effective. I'm talking specifically about the Green Goblin and Venom. More on them soon. When we first start the show, we see Peter, who can't be more excited to start school. He got powers and believes now that his social life will turn for the better. He asks out a cheerleader, stands up to his middle school bully, and it all ends up going pretty bad. This shows him that even if he's Spider-Man, all his problems won't just go away. If anything, they become amplified as the series progresses. In the episode Natural Selection, Peter is tempted to take the gene cleanser. At this point in the story, his social relationships are bad, he still can't pay the bills. What's the point of doing good deeds if it doesn't help him in the process? Before he takes the cleanser, he sees a picture of Uncle Ben in the background and stops. He understands that he can't turn his back on responsibilities anymore, because the last time he did it, Uncle Ben died.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man. It's catchy.
In the first season, there was a lot of focus on Peter and his problems with Aunt May, whether that be paying the house bills or the hospital bills. In the second, his problems become a lot more social. These two priorities, along with his hero work, really capture the essence of Spider-Man. No other superhero has to deal with the inner workings of a mafia while simultaneously making sure he's back on time for his date with Liz. Unlike other superheroes who are heroic Greek gods, being a superhero, being Spider-Man, sucks for Peter. Being a superhero doesn't fix his problems, it actually just creates more. Which is such a quintessentially Spider-Man theme that helps him feel grounded and relatable. That, in essence, is truly the appeal of Spider-Man. It's what propels him to be arguably the most popular superhero in the world. His problems aren't based on some convoluted mythology, but rather real-life problems that you and I face. In a scene where planetary beings fight for the fate of the universe, our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man worries about paying the bills for his Aunt May, while simultaneously trying to stop evil geniuses from taking over New York.
And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. With great power, there must also come great responsibility.
Spider-Man is one of those rare series where the villains are unapologetically bad people, but still very understandable and well written. It proves that you don't need ideologically complex villains to still be effective to the narrative. Peter is given power and will do whatever it takes to save people. All of the villains are also given power, but choose to use it for their own benefit. Nearly every villain in the show has some sort of genetic alteration or genius intellect, but they choose to use it against the world because of some pent-up anger. This is best seen through the character of Venom. Venom and Eddie Brock are physically and thematically the antithesis of Peter and Spider-Man. Spider-Man is quick, agile, nimble, and resourceful. Venom is a bulky, monstrous brute who often gets the better of Spider-Man due to his overwhelming power. He's the only force in this show that doesn't trigger Peter's spider sense, so he doesn't even know when he's going to attack, which makes him arguably the most dangerous antagonist Peter ever fights. Both Eddie and Peter got their parents killed at the same time and make the best of what they have. Then this little symbiote comes along and attaches to Spider-Man. Peter Parker and Spider-Man are able to resist its influence, but due to what Brock has gone through, he's ready to fully embrace it. When he gets the symbiote the second time, he literally poses as Spider-Man only to taint his legacy with villainy. His great power is tainted with irresponsibility. By the last time we see Eddie, he's mourning and pleading to the symbiote to come back. What I find interesting about this event is what he says these last lines.
You're free. You can stop this. Stop hating.
Can't. It only loves me for the hate.
What I feel in that voice is a truly corrupted soul yearning for something, anything to latch onto. Peter had Uncle Ben, which extended to the rest of his friends. Eddie had no one. His best friend was never there for him. The local hero ended up making him lose his job. No parents, no friends, no girlfriend. He had nothing. I truly believe that he doesn't really want to be with the symbiote, but it's all he has to keep him stable. Which leads me into my next point. Harry and his relationship with his father Norman juxtapose Peter in some meaningful ways. First of all, Harry has a dad and Peter doesn't. What this means is that Harry has a father figure, someone he looks up to and someone he tries to impress, as opposed to Peter, of course, who doesn't have any parents and his uncle died. Harry's family is also extremely rich. Harry essentially has all the superficial needs Peter works for, but none of the sentimental desires. None of the extra stuff like a loving girlfriend or approval from his family. Seeking approval, he takes the green and gains essentially nothing out of it. Perhaps because he was using this power for his own self-gain? What intrigues me about this dynamic is how Harry has a father and Peter doesn't, but Harry ends up messing up a lot more than Peter does. Harry only began to find solace when he surrounded himself with the right people, not when he's taking essentially steroids to impress his father. His dad wasn't someone he should have been trying to impress. In fact, it's hard to tell when he was even there. His father was only really in it for himself and had some twisted love. His father wore a mask to deceive, whereas Spider-Man wore a mask to protect.
Anyone can pretend to be Spidey and you guys will eat it up. But there's only one genuine article.
You mean Peter Parker?
Yeah. No, this guy.
He's my biggest fan.
Flash. Yeah, him. On a smaller scale, he indeed has incredible power. He's a sports star in his school and loved by nearly everyone. When he loses his girlfriend and has his eyes out on another one, it makes him realize that he doesn't actually have that much power. He's humbled, no longer the popular charismatic jock he thinks he is. He chooses this nerdy girl as a way to contrast Peter, a nerd who dated a popular girl. He soon realizes that just because he's popular doesn't mean everyone is going to like him. His cute little arc tells us that just because you have power doesn't mean everything is going to come to you. If you want things that really matter, you'll have to be powerful on both the inside and the outside. If the show were to continue, I'm sure Flash would have gotten some redemption arc. Who knows, he might have even got the Venom symbiote and become a good guy like he did in the comics. On the topic of love interests, I love how Peter's true love, that being Gwen Stacy, is a lot more of a nerd than his other interests. MJ, Liz, and arguably Black Cat are all popular and glamorous. This helps keep Peter's story grounded in the idea that even though he's a larger-than-life icon now, he's still a nerd at heart.
Wow, a three-way battle to declare New York's biggest jerk. Where do I start?
Perhaps with your demise, Arachnid.
A lot of people don't like the simple art style, and I would tend to agree for the most part. But when the suited up heroes are fighting, something about its simplicity really helps it stick out and actually look better. The colors are just more bolded so they stick out more, which helps the smooth kinetic animation flow better. So generally, I'd say the action pieces are really fun to look at, but the more mundane school stuff kind of looks bland. Some extra stuff I found really cool was how when the symbiote first attaches to Spider-Man, it looks like the Raimi version, but through the next couple episodes it changes to resemble the original comic look. The episode Growing Pains contains Shakespearean soliloquies from the play auditions which foreshadow Venom's return. Neat. I really like how the episode's subtext plays the episode almost reverse chronologically. The episode Catalyst also does this, and it really helps shake up the formula. Gangland is probably my favorite episode of the entire series. It was the climax of the growing tensions between all the big men in crime, all juxtaposed by an opera concert. A musical motif denoting events that are overly dramatic. Usually when it's used, it's to show how annoying things have gotten for our characters, and that's exactly how I was feeling about Peter's life at that point. Not necessarily that it was overly dramatic, but how he was so conflicted about his relationship with Liz and Gwen, and how the crime scene, and by extension his life as Spider-Man, was just getting really in the way of his personal life. This episode felt like the climax of all of that, and it was communicated perfectly. And finally, I really like Hammerhead's voice. It's so overly dramatic and cartoony that I just love it.
I said it before, and I'll say it again. Don't mess with the big dogs.
And that's all I really gotta say about this show. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, I highly recommend you watch it. I just recently rewatched it after watching Far From Home. Let me know if you want me to make a video on Far From Home. I got some stuff I want to say about it. But that kind of does hinge on the success of this video. So if this video gets like 7,000-8,000 views in the first month, then I'll probably do it. If not, I hope you enjoyed. This video will probably get demonetized, so if you want to support me, I do have a Patreon. I got some perks you may find interesting. So with all that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out! Here comes the spider.